honestly, I don't blame you, bitch. I see your unhappiness and I say no, 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 no.
All right, now we are here, and we're finally getting the show underway that I've been intending to do for a while on Vince Russo, and people are gonna. There are people within my network that are going to be upset with me that I'm doing this. There are others that'll say, "Good, it needs to be said," because someone needs to really talk a little more truth about Vince Russo, and I'm probably part of that minority. I'm a Vince Russo defender. But I gotta say that there's been a lot said where Vince Russo goes and a lot of things done. And I gotta tell you, Vince Russo, Eric Bischoff, Hulk Hogan. If you guys should ever listen to this, whether it be on my iTunes or SoundCloud or Mixcloud or right here if you find this on Mixler, or even on YouTube, because this will be going over there too. I got one thing to say. Stop the madness. I agree with Vince Russo to the fact to where let's ultimately end this. Let's get you guys on a polygraph and do a show with it. And I don't mean on the WWE Network. I don't mean on the Swerve. I don't mean with TNA Wrestling. Go to a neutral spot somewhere. I don't care if you go on Maury Povech's show. I don't care if you guys find a special and you do it on all the community access TV stations all over the country. Get it done. Take a polygraph and let's see who's telling the truth, who isn't. Let's find that neutral field for all three of you. That's what I want to say there. And truthfully, I think when it comes down to it, I think the only one who would tell the truth if that were to ever happen would be Vince Russo. Okay, that's the end of the show. Just kidding. But seriously, come on. I've heard it. I've heard it plenty of times out of Hulk Hogan and plenty of times out of Eric Bischoff, where their stories didn't match. And truthfully, I've heard Eric Bischoff change the story. All I know is when it came down to those three, and it came down to WCW and TNA, it seemed like one person was willing to be the professional in all this. That was, and I'm sorry to say, I think that was Vince Russo. Vince Russo was finally putting up the building blocks in TNA that needed to be put up in 2009, and I really thought we were starting to see the best stuff come out of TNA, and TNA could grow from there. But when you bring in Hogan and Bischoff, all they did was tear everything down and rebuild it. Tear it down, then rebuild it. Tear it down, then rebuild it. Why do you think Vince Russo got out of there? Dixie Carter did not know what she was doing. It was WCW all over again. And let me tell people who really want to say this, the Dave Meltzers of the world, the Brian Alvarez's, the Those people of the world, get your facts straight. Get it straight. I'm not here to play games with this anymore. I am not here to play games with this anymore. And a lot of people who are Russo defenders are tired of trying to play games with this. I didn't know if everything at Bash at the Beach was a shoot or a work. Vince Russo said for the most part it was a work. But I wouldn't doubt if it was a partial shoot, or in some people's heart it felt like a shoot that were watching WCW wrestling at that time. Because all they kept seeing were the same things over and over again. And what did we see? We got to hear about the politics. We got to hear about the, we got to hear about, the guarantees and the creative control. Who's in whose back pocket? Who's a stooge? Who's a stooge for this person? That's what went on in WCW. And then when you hear Bash at the Beach and you see what happened there, I agree with Vince Russo. We did not need another Hulk Hogan title reign in WCW. We didn't. Hollywood Hulk Hogan was at that point lame. The Immortal Hulk Hogan was lame. We did not see a Hulk Hogan we could get into until we got to the WWF, his WWF return. And you kind of saw him take the Immortal Hulk Hogan and Hollywood Hulk Hogan and kind of gel it together. And even that was really short-lived too, because it just got to the point to where, what were we doing? We were seeing Hulk Hogan all over again. It was like watching the same nightmare that was WCW without it being WCW. It's kind of like what we're seeing here with these elections. And I'll tell you right here, right now, where this goes. People who want to talk down about Vince Russo and what Eric Bischoff had to say, and a lot of these people are still living off of the dirt sheets, drinking the Kool-Aid, and whatnot, and being these people that are like big on Eric Bischoff now, big on Eric Bischoff all of a sudden. Just remember one factor here. Let's put in one factor into all this. I'm not opening up phone lines here. I'm not opening up phone lines. I'll take your comments in the chat room if you have them. That's fine by me. But I want to make one point. Why were you guys capable of working like you did in TNA? Why did it always sound like things were ultimately getting along between you guys in TNA? Because I'll tell you this right now. If things were what they were in TNA, I'll tell you this right now. If they could have been like that in WCW, with the way you guys were in TNA, WCW would have probably had a fighting chance. It really would have. I want to make that point known. But to say Vince Russo and his original run in WCW was a flop, to say that his original run, he was a flop, is wrong. It is wrong. I'm sick and tired of seeing the ratings all of a sudden get manipulated. I'm sick and tired of it. I'm sick and tired of hearing historians try and manipulate this thing. So I mean, I don't know what else to say where that goes. I don't know what else to say where that goes. I just remember you were trying to say WWE's ratings were still only in the fives when TNA was, or WWE, their ratings were only in the fives during the Monday Night Wars when they got rid of Eric Bischoff, and they were still in the mid threes. when they got rid of Bischoff. I remember hearing that the rumors going around that that Bischoff had to get ratings up or he was going to be gone. I remember hearing those rumors. And at that point, the ratings they were lucky if they kept a 3.0 going. That's number one. Number two, ratings were already going down into the twos when I heard Russo was in and Bischoff was out. Now, I know that there was about a 3-4 week period in between Eric Bischoff and Vince Russo in WCW. So you look at the fact that you had the whole Bret Hart versus Chris Benoit thing go on, tribute to Owen Hart, 2.6 rating. WWE at the time, they were in the sixes. In fact, I believe WWE at one point was averaging maybe between a 6.2 and a 6.5 rating. WWE was in the high sixes shortly after Vince Russo had the carpet pulled out from under him, and you had the Benoits and the Eddie Guerreros and the Perry Saturns and the Dean Malenkos show up as radicals in WWE. Then they were in the high sixes. In fact, I think that was probably between that point and right before WrestleMania, where WCW was still kind of coasting. And when I say coasting in mediocrity, was probably the best time for WWE. With their talent, with what they were programming, and what they had going on. They had Vince Russo's Attitude Era going on, and the guy, of course, who came up with the 3 eyes for Kurt Angle, who was now handling the creative end for things, that was turning into the best time. You were seeing probably what would have been a real good crossover if the WCW and ECW buyouts never happened. And believe me, wrestling would have still probably had a good edge to it if that buyout never happened and WCW was still around. And like I said before, with what I was seeing in TNA, with the Hulk Hogan, Vince Russo, and Eric Bischoff working together, if they worked together more like this, WCW would have probably had a much more of a fighting chance. That's number one. That was point number one I made. Point number two is Vince Russo comes in and he does something that's almost impossible to do and brings the ratings up. Yes, ratings were going up, and there was nothing but good things said about, things are getting better in WCW. They brought in Vince Russo and they brought in Ed Ferreira. Nothing could be going wrong, to where the ratings are going up, then Vince Russo's gone? Come on. And that makes no sense. It makes no sense at all. And and I gotta say this. Lunch ladies in the chat room, Cat Vecchione's in the chat room. People who want to hear this, who are interested in this, listen up here, because why does a story change all the time when it comes to Bash of the Beach? Why does it change? All of a sudden they're saying Vince Russo never brought the ratings up. In that original run, I'm sorry, he brought ratings up. People were starting to watch Monday Night Nitro again. Now, people can say, Vince Russo only goes to the average wrestling fan and not the real hardcore base of wrestling fans. He goes to the wrestling fans that are more fair weather. Bull. I'll say it right here. That's a load of bull. Why is that a load of bull? Because of what went on. What went on? Why would the ratings all of a sudden go up for Vince Russo? He did something that it did not take rocket science to do. That was the start to use of wrestlers people would rather see pushed. They got tired of Hulk Hogan. They got tired of Kevin Nash, even though Kevin Nash and Scott Hall still had a very youthful following to them. He kept the ones around that were willing to do business. Ric Flair, no one wanted that anymore. Rowdy Piper on top, no one wanted that anymore. WWE had fresh talent going on during the Attitude Era. And when Austin was injured, you had The Rock there ready to go. When Austin was still injured, The Rock had to go and do a movie. You had Triple H and Mankind there to get things done. And and even when The Undertaker was out injured, you still had Triple H and Mankind there to handle things. Or when The Undertaker was all right, things were going well. You really had a period of time where WWE had the superstars and had the fresh faces. How many broken necks came out of WWE during Vince Russo's time, aside from Steve Austin's? Not that many when you really think about it. Not that many. Because he was conserving these wrestlers on Raw shows. Ed Ferreira was conserving these wrestlers when it came down to doing Sunday Night Heat. And eventually SmackDown, those two. So, you got to look at it that way. Excuse me, I had to clear my throat. That's what I think. And for people to say that Vince Russo, and I'm going to play a little something from Vince Russo's show here, which I'm actually trying to get up here. And this is going to talk about some of the things going on. And I am doing a search here for this one. And I'm going to get this done, for people here. People got to know what went on. This is what people got to understand here. This is what people need to understand. What went on. Here's something that was said when Vince Russo was still in TNA and they had that show called TNA Reaction going on. Here's what Eric Bischoff first had to say. This is something to really listen to. This is something that really needs to be said. This was from the TNA Reaction show.
I was put in a position where I don't want to say I was forced to work with Eric Bischoff and Hulk Hogan because I could have quit. But at the end of the day, I have a family that I need to support. So I was put in a position where I have to work with Eric and Hulk. And, going all the way back to, 1999, everybody knows the history. And you want to believe that people change, and it would be nice to think as we get older, we change. But you know what? Sometimes there are old wounds that just never go away. And no matter how much older we get, no matter how much mature we get, no matter how much we grow as people, there's still something inside that, is hard to let go. And I'll tell you right now, I haven't let it go. And I don't think Eric and Hulk have let it go. Have we worked together for the past 9 months? Yeah, we've worked together. Maybe you could say that's because we're professionals. On a personal level, if I had the opportunity for Eric and Hulk to leave TNA tomorrow, I would be all over that opportunity, but unfortunately that's not my call. Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff are driven by money and power. It's always been that way. Eric Bischoff and Hulk Hogan don't care who they step on in order to get to what they want. It has always been that way. But at the end of the day, it's money, 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 money. And that's what drives Hulk. Power is the same for Eric. Eric wants to be the guy, in charge, number one. That's the way he wanted to be with me 10 years ago. That's the way he wants to be now. So, again, it's a pleasant thought to think that people do change, but the age-old saying is they don't, and they haven't.
So there you go. There you go, right there. That should say it all, where it goes. And we do have some more here that was excuse me, that was said. And I got this question. I'm just being honest here. How did they get along during that time in TNA? I'm not exactly sure if a lot of what went on with Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff had to do with Vince Russo leaving again. For what I remember, I don't remember anything on record with him saying that was the reason why he left. I know he pretty much did not create any drama. He never once talked bad about Russo or Russo never once talked bad about Bischoff or Hogan. Bischoff has taken his shots at Vince Russo over the time. And of course what we got to see really was not the best. I mean, we get to hear what we've heard how much people didn't like either one of them. But I will say this. Bischoff, you did great defending TNA when it came down to the dirt sheets, when it came down to all the crazy rumors that would come from the IWC. But you did not once at all extend the fact that maybe you and Vince Russo could have really worked together with the way you guys were together there in TNA. You did make some comments his way. I did see Eric Bischoff say it's wrong to blame Vince Russo for the downfall of WCW. And this was after you took all your cheap shots at him, saying how you can't do what Vince McMahon did, yet it worked the first time. Now, I'm just being honest here. Because Bischoff, you are capable of doing one thing that will never happen to Vince McMahon again. You were able to get the Turner people to spend the money. Now, it may not have been as much. You may not have gotten as much money as some people would like to think you did. And you did probably take away from certain budgets just to get talent. But you still had more money in a budget. In fact, you had money to the point to where you weren't working with a bottom line. You weren't. So you had wrestlers that you weren't even using. So there comes a point in all this. There comes a point where either you're in or you're out. And for Vince Russo, and I'm going to get more into Vince Russo here. Do you like the guy or do you hate the guy? You had to work with the guy to where now Bischoff is no longer in TNA. Vince Russo was gone before that. All of a sudden, we're seeing Eric Bischoff doing things with WWE again. As far as little things, nothing real big. I see an interview that you did on RF Video, where you really come down on Vince Russo and everything that happened with Bash at the Beach. And your story does not match that of Hogan's. And then you talk about him again on the WWE Network, which is the most recent thing, about the whole Bash at the Beach thing. And how much of your story matched? Come on. Bischoff's story has not changed one bit. He stands by his story. I do believe that he really should have called Hulk Hogan and let him know that, and still stuck by his words, but saying they're not going to do anything with you, and it's not me doing this to you, it's them. Whether Hogan believed you or not, at least you should have just, he would have been truthful and honest there and lived up to his word. I believe that with Vince Russo. I love how you were on not Eric Bischoff's, but Dave Meltzer's show saying, oh, WCW didn't allow him to do this or that, and that's why he failed. And you wanted to say that was the biggest punk excuse of all time. You know damn well that WCW had standards and practices, that Turner had standards and practices, that they wouldn't even show a book on. So, I'll say it. I'll say it. So ratings finally go back into the threes. Let's get back into the story here. So ratings finally get back into the threes for WCW. With Vince Russo there, I believe some people say Vince Russo was there only 3 months, and they said he only did 11 weeks worth of shows. The only one that could really verify that one will be Vince Russo. I remember the praises that they were giving him. I heard that it was 13 weeks he was there for his original run. Some even told me 14. I mean, I've heard. I don't know for sure. All I know is that the Powers That Be thing was going real well. Bischoff's gone for 3 months, and ratings plummet. And at this point, by the time you decide you're going to bring Eric Bischoff back along with Vince Russo. Now, let me tell you this. If Vince Russo was so bad with the ratings, like these people want to say, why did they bring Vince Russo back along with Eric Bischoff? Why did they do that? Vince Russo stayed there with Eric Bischoff. That whole thing only lasted 2 months of R&B. Russo and Bischoff. Things were happening. Bischoff had his own agenda. Russo was trying to work with people, and I believe he was trying to work with people. But when people have this agenda, what happens? Absolute unorganization. People start leaving while they're in the middle of storylines. And you got to try to quickly regroup. It got to the point to where you couldn't do anything. You couldn't put up the building blocks. You couldn't do things for the right reason. Then, basically, Russo's finally gone again. But people had already... The AOL Time Warner people, they were done. They were done with WCW, even before they brought back Russo and Bischoff. They were done. They didn't care anymore. And to tell you the truth, most of the fans didn't care at that point. WWE's ratings were in the sixes. Or I should say, WWE's ratings were in the sixes. WCW's ratings were in the twos. No one cared anymore. I mean, this last shot, even if... And I'll say this in defense of both Russo and Bischoff. Even if those two worked together and made a great team and they came up with the greatest ideas in the world that would have been the greatest things for wrestling, I don't think it would have mattered. People were done with WWE, or WCW, excuse me. Look what's happening in WWE right now. WWE's gotten too complacent. They've let too many things that have worked for them go. They have not worked with their younger talent. Hell, they haven't worked with young talent for a while. I've been saying this for a while. And I know some of them had personal issues that made it hard to push them, but really, by the time you got to 2006, between 2006 and 2010, I'll say, your top guys between that time, to build around should have been the CM Punks. Edge probably was your best shot at running with someone. And Edge, I don't think ever had the career he should have had. But CM Punk, Edge, Sean O'Hare. I know Sean O'Hare had issues, which made it hard. But you'll never see a guy like Sean O'Hare come around who had wrestling talent. He had a body. He was good on the mic. He was very charismatic. You'll never see that again. And to me, WWE dropped the ball with him and never used him after the whole WCW invasion thing. Chris Kanyon, God rest his soul. I mean, these are people I would have been using. These are people that would have been at the top of their game. John Cena, Randy Orton. Just to name a few, those are some of them that I really would have used. Even though he wasn't the greatest wrestler, when they finally made him Kevin Thorne for the ECW brand of WWE, he was the type of guy that I would have had beating Kane just to have the torch passed over to him. I mean, there were they had talent there that they never used to their potential. The guys they got there now, they're not using either. And if you had a Vince Russo there, he would have known how to do things more properly. He would not have put the world title he would not have put the world title around the waist of Roman Reigns. He would not have done that because Roman Reigns still needs to turn a corner in his career, a corner that he really hasn't turned yet. He would not be using a part-time Brock Lesnar and making him the top guy. If Taker was going to lose his undefeated streak, it would have been to someone like Bray Wyatt. It would have been Bray. Bray, is hot. I'm not the biggest fan of the Wyatts. I really don't like the gimmick. But you got Bray, who was at a height. At one point, you had Dolph Ziggler at a height, and boy, has WWE dropped the ball with him. They're de-pushing Ryback. So don't look for a dream match of Ryback and Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania at any time. They're de-pushing him again. I mean, come on. Look at what you got. I mean, really, at this point, I would have probably gone and had, especially after what you got to see with the Survivor Series with Dolph Ziggler having to survive 4 people. I mean, that was great. Dolph should, I would have kept Dolph the Intercontinental Champion, even till this point. I would have had Dolph go into the Royal Rumble number 1. And I would have had him looking like he could beat the record. I wouldn't have had him win the Royal Rumble, but I would have had him look like he was going to beat the all-time Royal Rumble record. I would have had him doing everything, showing that he still has a fighting chance against guys like Kane and the Big Show before they both threw him over the top rope. I would have done everything to make things look more supernatural with this guy. What does this guy have that we don't know about? Dolph Ziggler, let's face it, he's your modern-day Ric Flair. He really is. He would still be the Intercontinental Champion. He'd be beating, he would have, He'd be having a a thing going on. He'd be beating Honky Tonk Man's record. These are the type of things that would be going on right now. This is what I think of Vince Russo would do. As far as who he would push. I don't know if he'd exactly do it my way, the way I'm saying it here. But Dolph Ziggler, Bray Wyatt, Seth Rollins. He would push Dean Ambrose and Roman Reigns too. He just would not make Roman Reigns the top guy. Again, Roman Reigns isn't ready for that. He would have probably, Vince Russo, if he were there for the last couple of years, would have found a way to work things out to where Daniel Bryan wasn't going to be putting jeopardy on his neck and having to retire while he's at the height of his career. He'd still use a John Cena and a Randy Orton. And if anyone would know how to use them and push them to where they could turn the corner in their career, it would be Vince Russo. So there are those things that would have gone on with a Vince Russo that would have worked, because Vince Russo put the younger talent over when he was winning in WWE. They built the Hardys, Matt and Jeff Hardy. They built Edge and Christian. They built Val Venus. They built Mankind. Mick Foley would have never had the career he had and written books and everything if things didn't start happening during that Vince Russo time. The different personalities of Goldust would not have happened, and Goldust would have been very one-dimensional. Even though, and I will say this, I know Dustin Runnels has a great personality, and and is very good at what he does. He would have pushed. He would have pushed guys that should be pushed. He would have known how to do it. Vince Russo, I think he knew what he had at that time. And if you're going to try and use new writers and have a Vince Russo there, Vince Russo would be able to find the writers that have the new ideas that would be good for wrestling. I constantly talked about Chris Bell. Since 2003, why wasn't this guy used more so in WWE? They need new ideas. I'm tired of hearing fire Russo, fire Russo. I'm tired of it myself. I got sick and tired of hearing that. Because Russo's not doing anything wrong. He didn't do anything really wrong in TNA. People love to put the blame on him, which were things that were done by Dutch Mantell, things that were done that were Dixie Carter's idea to do, things that were a Jeff Jarrett's idea to do, things that were an Eric Bischoff idea to do, things that were Bruce Pritchard's idea. Let's look at this for what it is. Russo is not to blame, and Russo is not to blame for what happened there. Russo was not to blame for what happened there on Bash at the Beach in 2000. He was not to blame. His story stays the same. Bischoff's doesn't. Bischoff's story and attitude changed with Vince Russo. From the time they worked in WCW. It changed when they worked together in TNA. Then now we're seeing all of a sudden Vince Russo's a jerk again? Vince Russo's an ass? He's scum of the earth? Come on! Use your head, IWC. Use your head, dirt sheet writers. Just because what you were seeing with Vince Russo wasn't your wrestling. Wrestling evolves. It does. During the 80s, with the WWE had what they had in the 80s, if it wasn't for Vince McMahon willing to spend the money, he had to get in someone who had a good rapport, with wrestling talent. He had to use wrestlers that had a good rapport. Yeah, I got my cat here too. He had to use a wrestler who had a good rapport. No, you can't be on the show. I'm sorry. He used wrestlers he had a good rapport with from every territory he worked, and that was George Scott. Bringing George Scott in from 83 to 86 really helped Vince McMahon and what he wanted to do with wrestling. He would have never gotten the wrestlers from the territories if he didn't have a George Scott. George Scott also knew wrestling. He knew how to do things on wrestling angles. That's the thing. He knew how to do it on wrestling angles. And people need to remember that part of it when it came to the 80s. That time from 84 to 86, George Scott did his thing. Vince McMahon handled the entertainment end. So you got to think about that end of it. That's what you got to remember. I'm sick and tired of hearing Vince Russo's this, Vince Russo's that. Well, prove it. Let's hear you say it, IWC. And the IWC, they're the ones who want to say, oh, it's all the internet marks only saying that. They're just internet marks. No, they're not. They're just as much as the wrestling fan as the person on the street that you talk to is. And just for the record, IWC, it was the person on the street that was saying when Eric Bischoff and Vince Russo were going to work together in WCW before that first show, that they were the ones who were saying, if someone were to ask, this could be WCW's last hope. The person on the street that doesn't go on the internet, that's the real hardcore wrestling fan that knew wrestling before there was an internet, and the rehashing of what dirt sheet writers say, all of a sudden you get these kids that are experts, and they're just stupid internet marks going on. If it wasn't for Vince Russo, you would not have what you have here. If it wasn't for Vince McMahon, if it wasn't for Vince Russo, if it wasn't for George Scott. Everyone talks about it. Now, you want me to say something where I don't agree with Vince Russo? There are a lot of things I didn't agree with Vince Russo. Judy Bagwell on a pole? I didn't care for that. I thought that was stupid. 4 boxes and one of them has the world title? I thought that was lame. Mae Young giving birth to a hand was ridiculously stupid. I didn't care about the Howard Stern and Jerry Springer at that time. What I did see that I enjoyed was the wrestling end of it. For every single pay-per-view. Vince Russo conserved wrestlers for the pay-per-view, where you would see the match of the year. People would go there to see that. Not that you're going to see nothing but wrestling on Raw, nothing but wrestling on SmackDown, nothing but wrestling on whatever secondary 1-hour show that they have. I don't know if they're doing Superstars and main event there anymore. I'm about another month. I'll be getting WWE, the WWE Network again. But this is a type of thing we're talking about. They still, and not to mention if they still go out and do house shows. They were still doing house shows back during the Attitude Era. But you had to find the best way to conserve these wrestlers because the bumps that they were taking were very real. You notice after Vince Russo left, the broken necks that went on in WWE, Steve Austin finally had to get his neck taken care of. You did everything you could to conserve Steve Austin physically. He finally had to get the neck surgery. The man was never the same again. So you got to look at that. What did WCW do? What did Eric Bischoff do? I agree. The only 2 ideas Vince Russo or Eric Bischoff had was going head-to-head on Monday nights. And on top of that, he shook things up to where they went live and to where being on a minute earlier meant something. At that time it was kind of tedious, but it meant something. They were coming on 2 minutes before Raw. Then Raw tried to go to 7:57. Then WCW and Nitro went to 7:55 and pretty much stayed that way, even when WWE moved up by an hour. You got to look at this for what it is. You got to see things for what they are. I mean, there are things I could not stand. I didn't like David Arquette as the world champion, but I understood where Vince Russo was coming from to do that. He was trying to get people talking about WCW, and it was not just a Vince Russo thing. It was Tony Schiavone was suggesting it. Terry Taylor even talked about it and said how he was for doing this. So there's some names there that you really have to look at where that goes. So look at the names and look at what's out there that were there. You know, I know Bischoff wasn't for it. I know Ed Ferrero was honest and said he wasn't for it. I understood what Russo was trying to do. And I didn't like the constant changing hands of the world title. I really didn't. These are things I could tell you about Vince Russo. But why were things so entertaining? There were some things you got to look at. Look at the bright side of his second run in WCW. He got Booker T. He got Booker T to turn the corner and get to the next level of his career. Booker T turned the corner a few years earlier when they made him the television champion. But then when he became the world champion, after everything that went on at Bash at the Beach, and you had some title defenses there with Booker T, Booker T started to become a household name. To me, some of that still has, but of that potential you had with Booker T should have been lived up to in WWE during the Invasion era. And during his time in WWE, they waited too long. Every time Booker T would hit a high, they would constantly keep bringing him down, which I thought was stupid. I mean, let's look at this thing. You know, it's crazy. It's crazy. It's ridiculous. You know, it's like the IWC with the way they kept ZZ in Tough Enough, and we had to be stuck with ZZ, and you had people saying, "Oh, this is about the underdog," when you knew darn well they were voting ZZ in because ZZ would be comic relief for them. You don't let the fans do that type of thing to see who has the potential to be something. Yeah, the fans make the ultimate decision, but the fans could also give you a dud like that too. So look at that. That's the type of thing you're talking about with what you got to see happen in WCW and was really starting to happen in TNA. TNA paid a heavy-duty price for the things that went on with Hogan and Bischoff there. So why does Vince Russo get all this blame? Why does Vince Russo get all this blame? Everyone treats Vince Russo like crap. It was the Vince Russo time that got JBL over, and Ron Simmons, reignited two careers. He was not there for the JBL time when he got to turn that corner to become JBL. But for the Acolytes and the Acolyte Protection Agency, Vince Russo was there for that. And the way you talk down about Vince Russo, JBL, yourself, with the way they were winning the war in ratings, if Vince Russo really wanted to, he could have said, "Get rid of them. They're not doing anything for you." And Vince McMahon probably would have at that time. And you would have never had the career. Be grateful for what you got out of things. Vince Russo liked listening to what wrestling talent had to say and find out who the real people were. So look at things for what they are. Vince Russo is not as bad as people think. Vince Russo didn't cause WCW to fall. WCW as a whole caused WCW to fall. Eric Bischoff should have known at the point that he was bringing in profit, it was time to also cut off some of the fat and get rid of the wrestlers you were not using, and only bring in the wrestlers and pay for their planes and their hotels that you were going to use. That's something that was said by Shane Douglas. That Russo got to the point to where he was saving them money. And then only bringing in the wrestlers that were going to be used for the shows. And you were starting to get a very solid show. You weren't going 45 minutes into a show with nothing going on because things were constantly changing because of, quote, people's spots. So, Bischoff, I respect you, but you only had two good plans. The Monday Night Wars with Nitro, and that brainchild, that I'll give you credit for, and the NWO. The NWO, creating your own competition, nothing was done better than that. Even WCW versus WWE was not as great as that NWO thing was. For that first year of the NWO, there was nothing better. There was nothing better. And I admit to that. But I'll tell you, when you saw groups like D-Generation X form, which was on Vince Russo's watch, that was the NWO being done with two to three people. Eventually it was done with 5 people. When you add in X-Pac, New Age Outlaws in China with Triple H. It was a more colorful version of the NWO. Only they were running amok when it was just Triple H and Shawn Michaels doing it with China. You want to see a corner get turned? That's when corners got turned. DX did something that really showed that Shawn Michaels really was the superstar people don't want to say he was. Stone Cold Steve Austin coming in and really breaking through like he did. This was a breath of fresh air. I was seeing a breath of fresh air when I saw new people coming into WCW during the Vince Russo era. And seeing the names that should have been used finally used. So there you go. You want to see what it was? There you go. I got nothing bad to say about Vince Russo. People who want to come down on Vince Russo, you don't know what you're talking about. You're a dime a dozen. You're going by what the dirt sheet writers have to say. The things that make the IWC, that's why TNA always had a hard time. Because I'll tell you, even during the Hogan Bischoff time in TNA, a lot of things that went on there was still better than what you were seeing on WWE, but you kept putting it down. Anything that was a positive that showed a higher rating for TNA on Monday nights and a lower rating for WWE, you said, oh, it couldn't have been TNA. It had to be the NBA playoffs. That's stupid when you knew WWE at one time was capable of competing with Monday Night Football. If TNA had a 0.8 rating and WWE had a 3.8 rating, and TNA all of a sudden showed a 1.1 and WWE showed a 3.5, oh, it couldn't have been that people were tuning into TNA. It couldn't have been. That's the type of thing I'm talking about. Vince Russo, I told you what I disagreed with. I also talked about the things I do agree with. Unfortunately, David Arquette, to get back to that, the bad outweighed the good. You're doing whatever you can, but excuse me, truthfully, I knew it. It didn't matter if USA Today posted something. You could have had the New York Times, the Chicago Post, you could have had all the newspapers, both locally and nationally, talking about that. You could have had CNN and MTV and the Fox News networks talking about it, trying to give it praise. The bad was going to outweigh the good. I know you were trying for something that would get it going. that would get people talking about it. I agree. You came into WCW when WCW was losing millions by the month. And you were doing what you could to save them money, but at the same time, knowing they had to spend some money in order to make it. WWE, what people don't know, when the Attitude Era was getting started, WWE was on the verge of bankruptcy, so they didn't know for sure that this was going to work at all. Because they're on the verge of bankruptcy when the change was going on. Losing some of the big names you had, including Bret Hart, was really what turned out to be the good thing, because that opened the door for people like The Rock. So, people, understand this. Vince Russo is not the bad guy. He really isn't. And it's time for Dave Meltzer, Wade Keller, Brian Alvarez, Alex Marvez to stop this. To stop all this. Where it comes down to it. Jason Powell, stop the BS. Because we're through. We're through with this. I think I speak for all of us. We're through with this. If Vince Russo were to come back tomorrow, then you'd see something different. Then you'd see people saying, "Oh, well, we're not going to watch that anymore." That's a load of crap. You'll watch it just to find the negative, and if they were to give you something to show for it that's the positive without you even knowing, you would be all over it. So with that being said, excuse me, I am getting a little bit of a cold here. That's what I'll say. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. There's nothing else really to say where it goes. So, live with it. Eric Bischoff, your story changed, and your story never coincided with Hulk Hogan's. The one thing Vince Russo has, he stuck to his story. So let's hear it. So his story has not changed. You already heard about the court battle that Hulk Hogan went on. I'm surprised Vince Russo doesn't sue people for defamation of character. I'm surprised he doesn't. But that's what I'm going to say here. Dirt sheet writers, get over it. IWC, get over it. Learn the business a lot better. WCW was losing millions a month before Vince Russo came in, and they were still losing millions. And then you pull the carpet out from Vince Russo after only 3 months. That's on them. So, with that being said, I'm going to call it a show. Thanks for listening, everyone. This is something that has to be said, and I am getting that final piece up that was said by Vince Russo about the whole batch at the beach thing. We're gonna do this thing because Vince, if you see this thing on my my YouTube, all you have to do is send me a message. I would gladly bring you on a show and interview you. If people got a problem with that, tough, because we're going to tell it like it is. I would have you, I'd have Ferrara. I would really just talk about this thing to such an extent. People would have a hard time understanding it. People would. And like I said, I am trying to get this thing up. So that's why I'm babbling here a little bit. So people, anytime you want to hear it, it is there. It is there. All you have to do is look at what was said. Vince Russo on Bash at the Beach, talks about Eric Bischoff on Bash at the Beach. I believe this is the one that goes on. It's 12 minutes long, and I'm not going to play all 12 minutes of it. I'm just trying to get to the point to where it should be. Okay, here we are. We are about 2 minutes into this. So here we go. I'm going to play this one. I'll let this one play out, and then I'll come back with some final comments.
Comments and look at the hate and disdain in his face for Vince Russo. When he says the name Vince Russo, literally you can feel hatred come through the computer screen. From the first day I met Eric Bischoff never liked me. Why? Quite frankly, because I replaced him at WCW. And, he wanted the job back. I was there. He did not like me from the get-go. Brad Siegel put the both of us to work together, hoping it would work, and it didn't work. So from day one, Eric Bischoff did not like me. Okay. On top of that, Hulk Hogan did not like me. Hulk Hogan did not trust me. Hulk Hogan has already made the comments that if you were over 40, at the WCW, you were going to be out of a job. All these things have been said. My point is these two did not like me. And you need to understand that to understand how what Eric is saying is absolute nonsense. Okay. Eric claims that day there was a four-way conversation between myself, him, Hulk Hogan, and Brad Siegel. Brad Siegel was the head of TBS and TNT. Eric says during that conversation that he laid out a story, Russo laid out a story, Brad Siegel voted for Eric Bischoff's story, and then basically Vince Russo went into business for himself. Now, just imagine this. With as much as Bischoff hated me and as much as Hogan hated me, imagine if I went into business for myself and I told Jeff Jarrett to lay down on a live pay-per-view, and in front of the entire world, Vince Russo showed up Hulk Hogan. But not only did I show him up in front of the entire world, I showed him up in front of the entire locker room. Now, if this were a shoot, do you not think that immediately following the laydown, I would have been confronted by a very upset Hulk Hogan and a very upset Eric Bischoff? I mean, I just went into business for myself and showed them up in front of the entire world, in front of the entire locker room. But yet, after the incident, there was no confrontation. They didn't come looking for me. There was no yelling. There was no hitting. Literally, Eric Bischoff and Hulk Hogan took their ball and left the building. Why? Because that was part of the script. Because that's what was all discussed beforehand. It was laid out that in the story, if I actually told Jeff Jarrett to lay down, you two would kill me if that were a shoot. Hogan and Bischoff would absolutely kill me. Therefore, they had to leave the building. Because if they didn't leave the building, they would have had to kill me in front of the boys. So that's how it was written. Jarrett lays down. Hogan, Bischoff leave the building. Again, if I went into business for myself and they had no knowledge of this, with the hatred they had towards Vince Russo and the egos both of these men have, do you really not think there wouldn't have been some kind of a confrontation? There was no confrontation because the story was discussed amongst all of us. And that is why Eric and Hulk peacefully left the building. Now, let's talk about hole number 2. According to Eric, Brad Siegel, who ran TBS and TNT, championed his story and agreed to do his story. We all agreed on that. Then Russo went into business for himself. Now, can you imagine if the head of TBS and the head of TNT told Vince Russo to do something and Vince Russo went into business for himself? Can you imagine the ramifications? But yet again, no ramifications.
It would have been all over the place. It would have been all over the place that Vince Russo went into business for himself. That's why no one ever really knew for sure. I will say this, and this is something I would like to question. If I ever had to question and be a doubter against Vince Russo, why was it that even the commentary was puzzled as to things and kind of really broke kayfabe, for lack of a better word, when it came down to this? We got to think about that. Let's keep going here. Let's do one more. Let's do another part of this here, because there's some points that are made by Vince Russo in this one. I'm not going to play it all. There's another part I want to play. Yeah. I mean, to really go against the people that are the big. I mean, so there's so much that's said here. I mean, there's a certain point where things have to be said. I mean, you got to look at things for what they are. This is one thing. I mean, I like the second one that was done by Vince Russo. I like the second one that was done where he absolutely shooted, and demanded a polygraph be done. There was something that was really said by Vince Russo, and I want to find this one. I'm not going to play the other one anymore, where he really just lays it down, and then just really gets on him. I mean, I love what he did with Casey Gale. I mean, all that was all well and good. Well, so you really can't say anything there. I'm gonna, I'll get this one up here so that we could all hear it. Where we all could hear this one, and because it really was a ridiculous thing. It really was, when you really look at it here. I mean, why all of a sudden did stories change? Why did they change? People take cheap shots on people and don't even think, don't even think before they do it. And this is where I love the fact that he said what he said. He says anytime they want to grow a set, come on the show. Come on the show. A lot of people have taken cheap shots at Vince Russo. Vince Russo went on their podcast. He went on Ric Flair's podcast. He went on a lot of podcasts where people had taken some shots at him. So to really look at what went on, You're only digging a hole. You're only digging a hole for the lie to get bigger. And Russo's right. Russo's right to have the attitude he has.
Hello, everybody. This is Vince Russo with a
Yeah.
very special announcement that I need to make as it concerns not only Pyro and Valley.
This has to do with Batch at the Beach. I'm still trying to find it here. But, I mean, we really don't need to. I mean, what you heard there really was enough. So I'm going to find this one. With what happened at Bash at the Beach. I mean, I really want to get into this one. About this whole matter, because again, I think it has to be said. I think it had to be said. Vince Russo himself. There's some things. If I've already proven it. I could go against Vince Russo on a lot of things. I could, but I'll also be wrong about things because ratings were still up. That's a simple fact. I could talk about how I disagreed with it. I could definitely talk about that. That wouldn't be hard. That would not be hard to do. So, people got to look at that end of it. And I am looking for my thing here on Vince Russo. I am trying to get this one going here. For whatever reason, I'm not finding that one. where Russo goes. Why I'm not finding it, I don't know, but we are still trying to look here. So, hopefully we'll find it here. I am doing my best to find it. Let me play a song here, while I do this one here. If not, I'll just come back with final comments. But here we go. Let me play this while we do this.
Everybody needs the spark that quenches like a candle kindles in the wind. Not by my ability, only by your spirit can we be. I'll do all that you require and free the fire in me. Oh, free the fire in me. Let it be ignited in power. Let me be a blaze in this hour, like a torch that's passed for eternity. Yeah. For the world set free is my burning desire, so free the fire. I said free the fire. I said free the fire. I said free the fire. Free the fire in me. Yeah. Let it be ignited in power. Let it be a blaze in this hour, like a torch that's passed for eternity. Yeah. Yeah. I wanna let it show. Oh, I wanna let it go. Just let it go. For the world set free is my burning desire. So free the fire in me. Free the fire. Free the fire.
All right, and we are back here, and here it is right here for you. I put this thing about 3 minutes and 45 seconds in. This'll tell you a lot about what's going on here, and I'm probably going to play about the video itself is only 10 minutes long, but here you go. This is something that was said by Vince Russo, and I totally agree with Vince Russo on how he handled this one. Wow. Oh
Let
man,
me
I'm
know.
sorry. I do
Until then,
apologize there.
I'm done with it. You want to know the truth. You
Okay,
want
I'm
a
gonna play this again here.
understanding of everything that happened wrestling-wise. You
I'm
can go
playing
to
it
the
for everyone to
document
hear
and you
right
can
now.
read it. So that was the testimony Hulk gave at the time, that when it came to the in-ring and the wrestling and the story, he knew every detail of what was happening wrestling-wise. Today, he knew nothing about the Jeff Jarrett laydown when he was on the Ric Flair podcast. You guys, listen, here's the deal. Get in a room, get on the same page, at least get the last story of BS and nonsense and fairy tale on the same page. Tell the same story. If you're going to publicly try to drag Vince Russo through the mud, tell the same story. But I got to tell you something. When you get in the room, don't come up with the story on your own. I think you need to get a professional writer. We have all seen, you're creative throughout the years of wrestling. Get a third party. Tell them the exact story you want. Commit to that story and then go out so both of you can tell the same story. Not we're pissed off, we're high-fiving. I didn't know Jarrett was laying down. I knew Jarrett was laying down. Listen, it's this simple, guys. This is the last time I'm talking about Bash at the Beach, because there's no point in me talking about something anymore that's been documented. It's a public record. Anybody can go to VinceRussoBrand.com and read what actually happened and took place. Eric Bischoff, Hulk Hogan, they go on TV and radio and tell their tales of woe like nobody is going to check the documentation. So they can basically say whatever it is they want to say, and people are just going to believe it. Why? Because they didn't think Vince Russo was going to call them out. Because they didn't think Vince Russo was going to post the actual transcripts on his website that says Hulk Hogan was aware of everything that took place when it came to wrestling. Let the court show. That's what it says. So, Hulk, you completely contradicted your legal statement that you took under oath. Here's the deal, guys. When Hulk Hogan, Eric Bischoff, or the WWE decide to grow a set, somebody call me and somebody let me know. When you want to come face to face with me about this story and we can really let the truth come out, let me know. The offer has already been made to Eric, whose weak excuse was, well, I'll never do that because you can't believe a word that comes out of his mouth. Oh, okay, really, Eric? That really makes a lot of sense. Eric, anytime you grow a set, Hulk, anytime you grow a set, WWE, anytime you grow a set, you know where to find me. Official Vince Russo at gmail.com. I'm on here every day, not only speaking my mind, speaking the absolute truth. And I got an idea for WWE. You need ratings because it sure as hell looks like you need ratings on Monday night from what I can see anyway. You want ratings? I'll tell you what. Hook up a lie detector test to me, to Eazy-E, and to Hulk Hogan. Ask us the same questions about what happened, and let's see what the lie detector test says. How about that? That's right out there, out in the open. You guys want ratings? You guys want to tell the full story? Let's do it. Anytime you want to do it, anytime, any place, I'll be more than happy to. But, like I said, listen, I don't start these things. I didn't start calling anybody out over Bash at the Beach. But all of a sudden, like I said, between Eric Bischoff and Hulk Hogan, we've got to go out there and we've got to spin our stories of woe, not thinking anybody is going to call us out, not thinking anybody is going to put the legal documents up on their website. And at the end of the day, you get called out on it. Will you meet me one-on-one and debate it? Absolutely not. Why? Because I'll expose you as not telling the truth. That's why. So there you have it. I'm done with the Bash of the Beach unless Hulk Hogan, Eric Bischoff, or the WWE grow a set. Call me, inform me, let me know that you now have balls. hook us up to a lie test. Put us on Monday night. I promise you we'll double the ratings that you're doing now. There's no question about that. Put us on the show. Let's see who's telling the truth and let's see who's lying. Because apparently a court document, when people gave testimony under oath, I guess that doesn't count anymore. I guess 15 years later, we can change the story to how it best suits up. So there you have it. I'm not talking about it again. When you grow a nutsack, somebody let me know when one of the other two parties involved at Bash of the Beach has a big boy nutsack. When you got a big boy nutsack, let me know. Until then, I'm done with it. You want to know the truth. You want to read the court documents. You want to see what Hulk Hogan said 15 years ago, which is the exact opposite of what he said today. All you have to do is go to Vince Russo, brand.com. Listen, this isn't my.
And there you go. In a nutshell, that's it. I apologize for the fact that it was muted there for about a good 5 minutes. But there you go. In a nutshell, that's what was said. I'll see if I'll do my best to edit it with what little knowledge I have on the technical side, so it's all together. But there you go. With that being said, I'll call it a show. It was a good show. But let's be honest. Let's be honest. Should Vince Russo be getting all this criticism? My answer to that is no. So that's how I'm going to say it. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. You know, and then this is just the way it is. So with that being said, I'm out of here. Thanks for listening. That's the way it is. Russo, I hope you hear this and I hope you enjoy this.